Channel 4, your family station.
Soviet Armenia, the devastation described tonight by Radio Moscow.
The earthquake took a heavy toll of life. For instance, in Spitak, there were 15,000 residents and several thousand resettlers from Azerbaijan. The town was ruined completely.
Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev headed for home to personally supervise the rescue operations.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. All day and into the night, the figures have been astonishing and depressing. An estimated 50 to 70,000 dead in the earthquake and aftershocks that struck at the heart of Armenia in the south of the Soviet Union. Communications are still primitive. Rescue efforts are just getting underway. So the death toll could be much higher for the earthquake, which registered 6.9 on the Richter scale when it hit yesterday. The epicenter was 2,000 miles southeast of Moscow along the border with Turkey. 3 Armenian cities were especially hard hit: Spitak, Leninakan, and Karabakh. The quake struck at mid-morning when children were at school and people at work. When the dimensions of this tragedy became clear, Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev immediately cut short his trip to New York, and he headed for home to personally supervise the rescue operations. NBC's Peter Kent is in Moscow tonight, and he reports that Soviet authorities who have reached the earthquake zone can hardly believe what they're seeing.
Western journalists are still being kept out of the disaster area, but new pictures from Armenia, broadcast tonight on Soviet television, show massive devastation. Terrible proof that many thousands were killed in the first massive quake and its powerful aftershock. And eyewitnesses speaking by phone tell of the thousands more who have been pulled from the rubble.
It is a very terrible situation in the hospitals because many people and the babies, there are many babies with the broken bones.
Soviet soldiers, militiamen, and civilian volunteers are still being brought into a rescue operation hampered by a lack of heavy equipment and rescue expertise. Spitak, a town of 20,000 near the epicenter of the quake, was flattened. Half the population is said to be dead. The town, in the words of the Soviet commentator, was wiped from the face of the earth. 30 miles away in the city of Leninakan, as much as a third of the buildings are said to have been destroyed or severely damaged. 200,000 people lived here. Local officials, supported by eyewitness accounts, say tens of thousands died or are still trapped under rubble.
Wounded are many wounded. They are in the hospitals, and the hospitals in Armenia are not enough, sufficient now, and they have taken many to Georgia.
Thousands of medical stations have already been set up in the region by the Red Cross and the Army. Across the Soviet Union, people have been asked to donate blood. These Moscow University students were among the first to respond. Senior Communist Party officials flew today to the Armenian capital of Yerevan to set up an emergency operations center. Politburo member Nikolai Ryzhkov was in charge today, but he'll step aside tomorrow when Mikhail Gorbachev arrives on the scene. Survivors will offer the Soviet leader accounts like this.
Those who survived all spent the night in the open. They turned off the electricity and gas to prevent fire. The town is completely without light, without water.
Another night is now upon the survivors, those in the open and those still trapped under tons of rubble. There were already as many as 200,000 refugees in Armenia and Azerbaijan, victims of 9 months of ethnic unrest and violence. Tonight, many of them are feared to be victims of the earthquake. Tom?
Peter, what about medical supplies? Does the Soviet Union have resources to deal with a tragedy of this dimension?
Well, the Soviet authorities have sent out urgent requests to all corners of the Soviet Union asking for medical supplies, for blood, for blankets, and for trained physicians. It is not sure that they can meet that demand, the demand in Armenia and Azerbaijan and Georgia, but the Red Cross here and the Red Crescent tonight said they would accept any offers of assistance from anywhere, any country around the world.
And that is a remote part of the Soviet Union. Do they have the kind of heavy equipment and expertise down there to deal with the rubble and the enormous amount of removal that will be required in the next several weeks?
Not yet. Again, the people that have been surveying the damage and sending out the request for exactly that sort of equipment have said that they don't have enough, and it's not immediately clear how they're going to transport the amount of equipment that is needed from other equally remote parts of this country to Armenia.
Thank you very much. Peter Kent in Moscow tonight. Armenia is one of the most densely populated of the Soviet republics. It's a little larger than the state of Maryland, and yet it has a population of 3,300,000 people with an area of 11,500 square miles. It's one of the smallest of the 15 republics. Most Armenians are Christian. Their ethnic rivals in neighboring Azerbaijan are Muslim. This earthquake hit in an area laced with earthquake faults, and the buildings there are not designed to withstand the kind of shaking that came with this one and a sizable aftershock that followed. NBC's Robert Bazell is at Caltech tonight with this report on how seismologists describe what happened there yesterday. Bob?
Tom, here is how the machines here at Caltech Seismology Lab displayed the Armenian earthquake. You can see all the squiggles. It's a 6.9 on the Richter scale, and this showed that it lasted for several minutes. There was an aftershock that was about 1/10 as powerful 5 minutes later. Now, a 6.9 is a strong earthquake, but it's not uncommon. So the big question is, why did it cause so much damage?
The area where the big quake struck is laced with large and small faults, so earthquakes occur frequently. This one was not too deep below the surface.
A 6.9 earthquake that is shallow in the crust that occurs in that part of the world often does a lot of damage. And the reason it does a lot of damage is because of the nature of the construction. Unreinforced masonry structures typically don't do well in the case of earthquakes.
These are pictures taken of the city of Leninagan before the quake. This city was level. Wooden structures often survive earthquakes because they are flexible, but wood is scarce here, so most buildings are made of brick and stone. Builders also seldom can afford steel reinforcements, so many of these buildings quickly became rubble.
Earthquakes don't kill people, buildings do.
Rescue efforts also have been more difficult because so many of the buildings crumbled into heavy pieces.
Tom, another reason why there were so many casualties, as you noted, was that the earthquake struck at mid-morning. Most people were out of their homes and into the big buildings and schools that are so much more dangerous.
Bob, what's the reaction in Southern California? After all, they're sitting in the same kind of a fault zone, and they haven't had the big earthquake that people have been predicting for some time now.
Well, this earthquake certainly should give California planners more pause. Don't forget, the prediction here is that an earthquake 10 times as powerful as the one in Armenia could strike Southern California within the next few years.
Thank you very much, Robert Bazell in California. And of course, they have changed the building codes out there to deal with all of that. I'll be back with the Gorbachev story and more news in a moment.
It takes time to get your gal to see the light. It takes time. It isn't always love at sight. From the first little glance till she's ready for romance. Remember, little man, it takes time. It takes time to make the coffee percolate. It takes time to get your gal to set the date. From the first moonlit walk till you get the baby talk.
The Elegance Collection from Citizen.
Yeah.
If you thought you had to give up comfort to get a close shave, Norelco says, think again. Their revolutionary shaving system shaves skin close in a way that's incredibly comfortable. As the hair enters the chamber, the patented lift and cut system lifts each hair and holds it a split second before a blade cuts it, so it's possible to shave skin close without the blades even touching the skin. The lift and cut shaving system from Norelco. We made close comfortable.
Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev had little choice but to cut short his New York visit today and go home to direct the earthquake relief operation. As he left for Moscow, he described the quake as extremely severe with a great loss of life. NBC's Bob Abernathy has details on his day.
It was a sudden and somber departure, a sad contrast to yesterday's triumphs. At Wednesday's meeting with President Reagan and Vice President Bush, there was no hint of urgency.
I don't think the General Secretary really knew the full dimension of the thing yet. Yesterday he was talking in terms of hundreds, and today in terms of thousands.
Even as late as last night's UN reception, Soviet spokesman said there was no need for Gorbachev to rush home. But then, as more information came in, a midnight news conference.
Mikhail Gorbachev believes that when a people is suffering,
he has to be there.
Not only did Gorbachev feel a duty to leave, there was a risk in staying. Had he gone through with today's largely sightseeing schedule, with so much tragedy at home, Gorbachev might have seemed insensitive. Today, President Reagan and President-elect Bush both telephoned Gorbachev to offer sympathy and help. Gorbachev said he was grateful. As Gorbachev hurried to the airport, there was speculation his early return home might help him deal with Armenia's ethnic unrest, as well as help its earthquake victims. But Gorbachev spoke only of helping the victims.
Urgent measures are being taken to help all those affected by this terrible tragedy, and I have to be there in this effort.
When he gets back to Moscow, Gorbachev is expected to fly on almost immediately to Armenia. Bob Abernethy, NBC News, New York.
NBC's John Chancellor is here now, and we've been talking all day long about the political ramifications for Mikhail Gorbachev, not only in the Soviet Union, but the outside world will be watching his behavior during all of this as well, don't you think?
I think he'll get more personal political benefit outside the Soviet Union than in it. The people in the Baltic states don't like the government in Moscow at all, and they're not going to like it better because it's helping refugees in Armenia. In Muslim Central Asia, in those Soviet republics, the Armenians have been fighting Muslims, so there's not going to be sympathy there. I think he will look better to the outside world.
And it will demonstrate whether or not the Soviet Union is both a more open place and whether it's equipped to deal with a contemporary world.
And he said in his UN speech, we can't have closed societies. So watch how much of that aid for the refugees gets into Armenia. He has to open it up, it seems to me. And also, Tom, it's a really new style of leadership. You cannot imagine Leonid Brezhnev being down there in his shirt sleeves, or imagine Stalin. It just wouldn't have happened.
Or acknowledging, perhaps, that they do, in fact, need some outside help. That's never happened in the past either.
Be nice.
John Chancellor, thanks for being with us. If the death toll of the Armenia earthquake is 50,000, maybe even higher, that would place it among the 20 deadliest earthquakes in all of recorded history. The worst ever in 16th century China. It killed 830,000 people. One in 18th century India killed 300,000. The worst since then, just 12 years ago in China, which killed 242,000 people. And a quake a half a century ago in China killed 200,000 people. The worst earthquake in this country, 1906, San Francisco, killed 452 people.
I woke up with a sinus cold.
Pain, congestion, pressure.
I took new maximum strength Dristan. I'm here.
New maximum strength Dristan to unplug congestion, relieve pressure and pain.
And I'm not drowsy.
New maximum strength Dristan for tough sinus colds.
You disappoint me. You are only eating Kellogg's strawberry squares to get that sweet strawberry in the middle. You're so superficial. I mean, there's no salt, no fat. Skipping stuff like that makes sense for your heart. You could eat squares for that. But no, you're just going to go right on eating them for the taste. Well, tell me I'm wrong. I thought so.
Kellogg's Squares. No salt, no fat. And now in blueberry.
Oh, blueberry.
Enjoy them to your heart's content.
Daybreak on the mountain, smooth coffee blend in your cup. And when it tastes your way,
It's necessarily Nescafe. Great coffee blends to taste your way. That's necessarily Nescafe.
There's only one place you'll find the all-cotton Color-Mate bath towel. It's thick, thirsty, and baby soft. Comes in these great colors for only $3.99. And there's more during our wonderful white sale, only at Sears.
A day after Gorbachev's bold announcement that he will cut Soviet forces, NATO foreign ministers welcomed his move, but they said that deeper cuts need to be made and proposed a 50% cut of NATO tanks, as well as those in the Warsaw Pact. NBC's Henry Champ reports on how NATO is viewing Gorbachev at this point.
Full the gap on the border between the two Germanys. Tanks, both east and west, plow through its countryside. Any future European war would start here. No questioning the popularity of Gorby, as they call him. and no questioning the changing West German attitude.
If the Russians really do what Gorbachev said, they probably should too.
Recent polls show Germans want to deal with Gorbachev, not shoot at him. NATO's only short-range missile, the Lance, needs replacing by 1995, but the German people will make that a difficult political decision. The majority of West Germans want more cooperation with the Soviets, much to the annoyance of other NATO nations.
Let them be impatient as they want to be. They have to understand that they are dealing with something that is to happen on German soil and not on their soil.
Today, as NATO foreign ministers met in Brussels, they knew Gorbachev's sweeping reductions are winning the hearts of their peoples. But they still want to see even more Soviet cuts.
The Soviet Union has been spending far too large a proportion of its wealth on defense.
Here in Vienna in January, the conventional arms talks are expected to start, with the West saying, we accept the cuts announced in New York. Now we want a further 50% reduction of tanks and troops by both sides. The Soviet leader's popularity will be a factor. Even the most hawkish of Europe's leaders was impressed by Gorbachev at the UN.
It was the whole atmosphere of the speech, the whole new approach, the whole new philosophy, treating it all now as one world.
Henry Champ, NBC News, London.
Another problem for NATO tonight, the crash of a U.S. Air Force A-10 jet today in West Germany. 6 people were killed and dozens were injured. NBC's Mike Betcher reports that the crash intensifies the debate over low-level training flights.
Dozens of homes were set ablaze when the American jet on a low-level training mission plunged into a residential district. Firemen raced to destroyed houses in a desperate search for victims and survivors. This year, there have been 20 accidents involving NATO aircraft operating in Germany, including the airshow collision of Italian fighter jets that killed 70 spectators. The spate of crashes has brought fervent calls for an end to low-level training missions over villages. Tonight, near the crash site, angry Germans renewed the demand.
Sollen sie in Amerika machen, zum Beispiel.
They should leave Germany and go back to America, said one onlooker.
Bogey left 11 o'clock.
NATO, which already has reduced low-level training missions, contends it can't cut anymore and still be prepared for a Warsaw Pact invasion.
This is the minimum. If you want us to carry out this task, we cannot go beyond this point.
But many West Germans, especially those who live in the middle of training areas, contend Mikhail Gorbachev's arms reduction initiatives now make it possible to scale back the annoying training exercises. German commanders are finding it more difficult to resist the demands.
We have to care all questions of defense, but we have also care all the feelings of the people.
After today's deadly lunch hour crash, the German government banned all low-level military flights until after Christmas. Mike Betcher, NBC News, Frankfurt.
The United States Agency for International Development reported tonight that 2 American planes spraying Locust were hit by missiles over Morocco. One of the planes was downed and all 5 members of its crew are presumed to be dead tonight. This attack took place near a border area where nationalist rebels are waging a guerrilla war to establish an independent Western Sahara. And in Honduras, in Latin America today, a U.S. military helicopter crashed while on a routine mission. 5 Americans were on board. All 5 were killed.
I'm back. For you, sir. Give them an Ultra Freedom Dual with 2 built-in lenses for large groups and tiny tins. Freedom cameras put the holiday spirit into anyone.
Season's greetings from Minolta.
Wow.
What you eating, babe?
Nothing, honey.
Oh, you can tell me.
Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch. Looks good, Private. What is it? Nothing, honey. Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch.
When you've got the special taste of nuts and honey all wrapped up in a hearty crunch, what more can you say? Here's what. New Nut and Honey Crunch Biscuits. Crunchy biscuits of wholesome shredded wheat with that special nut and honey taste inside.
Wow. Kellogg's Nut and Honey.
Now in biscuits, too.
Crunch.
You're the one they depend on to see it through. In this world it all counts and they're counting on you to show that world some style. You've been waiting for this time to come, and you know that time is here. You're living in real time.
holiday chart.
We interrupt this purchase for a reminder.
Don't forget, Santa.
'Tis the season to be choosy.
La 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 la.
That's it.
So choose the card that actually pays you cash back for every charge. The Discover card.
That's a great idea.
You sure know how to pick 'em.
It pays to Discover, the card that pays you back.
The new Remington Microscreen Ultimate with the exclusive beard lifter stretches the skin and lifts whiskers other shavers leave behind. The new Remington Microscreen Ultimate shaves as close as a blade and closer than any other electric shaver, or your money back.
The forces of nature were at work in Southern California today as well. At least 25 homes have been destroyed by the dry desert wind that they call the Santa Ana and the fires that it has started. Several dozen more homes have been damaged. Hundreds of people have been forced to evacuate. More than 300,000 people have lost electric power. NBC's George Lewis on this big wind.
It was a series of firestorms. Flames fanned by 80-mile-an-hour wind gusts, hurricane force.
Give me some pressure!
In many places, an all-night battle for firefighters as blowing embers touched off blaze after blaze. In this upper-middle-class suburb of Los Angeles, people fought to save their homes, sometimes losing.
The firemen came and they ran out of water. We had to leave, and it just got away.
The worst single fire was in the city of Baldwin Park, 20 miles northeast of downtown Los Angeles. Here, sparks from broken power lines touched off a blaze at a paper company. It quickly spread to the surrounding neighborhood where 15 homes burned to the ground. By daybreak, the Baldwin Park fire was out and the full extent of the destruction could be seen. Daniel Chavez surveyed the wreckage of his house, thankful for one thing, that he escaped alive.
They had no chance to get nothing out of here. Looked like somebody threw a bomb in this thing, you know?
Other fires were still burning this morning, but the wind died down enough for helicopters to fly in and douse the flames. Gail and David Brown, who are among the fire victims in the community of Laverne, said they would rebuild.
It's a beautiful house. It doesn't look it now, but it was beautiful inside.
Forecasters say the heavy Southern California winds will diminish in the next day or so. For firefighters, that won't come a moment too soon. George Lewis, NBC News, Baldwin Park, California.
At the U.S. Supreme Court today, Justice William Brennan suffered chills and he was taken to Bethesda Naval Hospital. He is being treated there tonight for pneumonia. Brennan, one of the court's liberals, is 82 years old. And First Lady Nancy Reagan says that former White House aides Michael Deaver and Lynn Nofziger have told her husband they would not accept presidential pardons if they were offered. Both men have been convicted of charges stemming from their activities as lobbyists. Mrs. Reagan told UPI's Helen Thomas she still regards both of them as friends.
The new Canon Sure Shot Ace with remote control puts you in your own pictures.
You ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures.
The Canon Sure Shot Ace. Get in on the fun.
Hey, McElroy, I thought you were from Illinois.
I am.
Only guys from Kentucky do that with their shredded wheat.
I've been doing this since I was a kid.
Here's how we do it in Brooklyn. First, we break them in half, and then we mash them to a pulp. Add some milk, maybe a little fruit garnish.
Now, Viscon shredded wheat is great no matter how you eat it because it's nutritious whole wheat with no added sugar or salt.
What do the guys from California do?
They float them.
I want meteor. Kibbles and bits and bits and bits. I said meteor. Kibbles and bits and bits and bits.
New kibbles and bits and bits and bits. Crunchy meteor kibbles. Chewy meteor bits. Meteor kibbles and bits than ever before.
Meteor.
Kibbles and bits and bits and bits. And kibbles and bits and gravy bits.
Meteor.
Where can you find a 46-inch screen TV with all this and more? A picture that's bright and clear with a cabinet this beautiful, all at this price. Just $54 a month. Now, only at Sears.
To recap once again today's major story, officials in Soviet Armenia say that the earthquake there all but destroyed several cities and killed tens of thousands of people. One estimate puts the toll at 50,000, another at 70,000. Military surgeons and tons of medical supplies are being rushed to the area. The United States and other nations have promised relief, and Soviet President Gorbachev has rushed back to Moscow, cutting short his visit to the U.S. to personally supervise the relief efforts. This earthquake struck at the heart of an ancient culture that has been battered, conquered, and divided, but never completely defeated. And wherever they have settled in this world, the Armenian people have kept their ties to each other and to their homeland. NBC's Robert Hager tonight on how Armenian Americans responded to this tragedy.
In Watertown, Massachusetts, outside Boston, a community where many Armenian Americans live, there was grief. People bound together by fierce pride and a sense of tragedy, massacred by Turks early this century, bloodied by recent riots in Soviet Azerbaijan, and now this. In the Los Angeles suburbs, the largest Armenian American community in the country, there were prayers. Rafi Kevorkian, California high school student.
Any Armenian all over the world is considered a relative of mine, and if they hurt, I hurt just as bad as they do.
Ara Kaledzian, the crusading editor of an Armenian American newspaper in Massachusetts.
I am a political animal. I am hard-hearted, but I couldn't stop myself, and I cried.
Armenian American groups are trying to organize and coordinate aid from this country. In a Denver suburb, volunteers gathered at the home of Nick and Diane Hodiwala to pack up clothing and blankets for shipment to the earthquake area. Outside Los Angeles, almost $500,000 worth of medical supplies have been stockpiled. In Miami at Pan Aviation, owned by the family of international arms dealer Sarkis Soganelian, the company volunteered at least 2 planes for relief flights. But Armenian churchmen who called on Soviet officials in New York today failed to win any permission to fly immediately. Armenian Americans who feel their people have already faced so much adversity now fear their homeland is suffering one more catastrophe, this one of immense proportions. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
That's Nightly News for this Thursday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you tonight at 8 Eastern Time for President Reagan's farewell White House news conference. I'll see you then.
It's a new Cosby that'll leave you